Well, Scott, Aileen, I'm just going to say it. It's a disaster in Detroit. That's what I'm calling this game.
Yep.
Because obviously they are big game to really drop on your schedule. But even worse than that, they lost so much more. And we're going to talk about that here on today's episode of Bucs Bonus.
Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, the home of News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. This is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now.
Welcome into the Stream Center here at WFLA, News Channel 8, your official station for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And listen, it's not the most fun episode to do right after a loss, right? But the good news, the bright side, there is some bright side. They're still 5-2.
I was going to say, give us the positives.
They've still got a long season to go, and I'm going to give you the positives out front because this show is going to be a lot about some unfortunate stuff. Like, we're just going to be honest. You can't really dance around it. And really what we have to start out with, I think, is Mike Evans, right? As a Bucs fan for basically my entire life, Mike Evans, obviously one of the biggest stars I've ever got to watch play.
Yeah.
And just what a heartbreaking way to see what may be his season ending, right?
Yeah, it very well could be. And certainly what comes to a close is his pursuit of NFL immortality, right? To beat Jerry Rice and get 12 consecutive seasons with 1,000 yards receiving. Yeah, it's not going to happen now. But you know what? Hey, Aileen, when you're tied with the GOAT, Jerry Rice, right? That's not a bad place to end, right?
Yeah.
To have that streak end tied with Jerry Rice, only two players to ever do it. Still, Mike, the only player to ever begin his career with 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So just an accomplishment that I don't think is going to be touched, certainly not in our lifetimes. Especially with the rash of injuries that are happening in the present-day NFL. I mean, good luck for any of these receivers that want to go 2 or 3 consecutive seasons of getting 1,000 yards without getting injured. And so just a very unfortunate injury. Thankfully, though, the Buccaneers, Aileen, they've won a couple games and some substantial games without Mike, beating the Seahawks up in Seattle and the 49ers. This wide receiving depth chart, I think, has enough bodies on it, at least right now, with hopefully Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan returning after the bye week, to weather the storm and continue to produce.
And that's something that head coach Todd Bowles said in his press conference the day after, right? He was like, we've been dealing without Mike for a little bit. So, we've had to change up some things in terms of the offense. So like you said, they're familiar with what they're probably going to do moving forward without him. But there's so many thoughts you have, right, running through your head when you see him go down. It's like, well, was that his hamstring? Oh, no, wait, that was his shoulder. Oh, no, wait, it was a concussion. So it's like he came in and beat the injury that he had going into that game and came out with 2 new ones. So that sucks. And then it's like the worst part about it is he's not going to be able to beat Jerry Rice's record too. So it's like just such a depressing, vibe. And you saw the look on his face when he was carted off the field. He just knew, and everyone else knew. I thought it was really awesome that Levante David walked off with him. Emeka Ibuka got down on one knee, touched him, and was praying the whole time. So, you know how much this city loves Mike, and really the NFL too. He's, very respected throughout every
He's
single.
an icon.
He is an icon, 100%. So, prayers to him and his family, of course. But I asked Bowles too. I was like, how is he? Is he in good spirits? What's his vibe? And he was like, look, Mike is always going to be able to, have a good head on his shoulder and a good mindset. So that's good to hear that he wasn't, too down bad, but sucks.
Yeah, I think, Scott, Pewter Report, you guys were the first to kind of report on the severity of the injury. The one good thing I took away from Todd Bowles talking about that was that there's a chance still that, if this team makes it the playoffs, which I say if, but really they look like a playoff team.
They do.
And if they can get there, right, then you're going to maybe get Mike Evans back in the same way that they got Vita Vea back a few years ago on that deep playoff run. So there's hope that he still gets to suit up for both his career and for the Bucs one more time at the very least. And I love that you brought that up, Aileen, about Levante David, because that was what I took away from it was, it's obviously a very somber moment. Everybody on the field is taking a knee, and the stadium was quiet, and the trainers are all standing around him, but you get the one Buck guy that was, Mr. Buccaneer is what they love to call Avante. Him standing there, it kind of proves why he is that model for them.
And the captain, yeah, for sure.
So, unfortunately, Mike Evans not the only injury we're going to have to talk about. Hassan Reddick is another one that is going to be, unfortunately, pretty important for this team, especially because as deep as the wide receivers are on this team, I think the outside linebackers, rather, might be the least depth that they have. Linebacker in general, perhaps. So losing Hassan Reddick for an extended period of time could be really, really rough. And Scott, I know you guys put out your 2-point article.
Conversion.
Thank you. 2-point conversion article earlier that calls for the Bucs to make somewhat of a drastic move in a way. I mean, maybe it's drastic. What do you think about it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not expecting Jason Licht to do it. He's only made one trade at the deadline, and that was in 2020, which was the Bucs Super Bowl season. So he recognized the importance of the moment, at least. That was when Vita Vea, as you mentioned, Garrett, was out with a broken leg, hurt that in, I want to say it was week 5 in Chicago, I believe. And then he was out for the rest of the regular season. Then he came back for the NFC Championship game and, of course, the Super Bowl, and helped the Bucs beat the Packers and Chiefs to collect that Lombardi trophy. But this is not a situation where it's a well-stocked cupboard, right? You had Hassan Reddick, who really wasn't lighting it up. He had 26 pressures on the year, which was good, but only a sack and a half. I don't think he made the impact that Buccaneer fans and maybe even the team had hoped he was going to make. Still a lot of the season left to go, but we've seen him play with Yaya Diaby, play off each other pretty well. And I think that's helped Yaya having that veteran presence on the other side. But now you have Anthony Nelson in there, and okay, he's a fill-in guy. He's a reserve. He's not a starting caliber edge rusher. He's not ideal. But Aileen, that second unit now, when those guys need a breather, you're talking Chris Braswell, who has really done nothing in Tampa, if we're being honest, and Marquise Watts, who's a special teamer at best. They really need some more pass rush help. I don't know that Jason Licht is going to want to pull the trigger, but he has to understand this is one of those special seasons. You're 5-2. You have a chance to be 6-2 if you beat New Orleans, which should happen. Covered this team for 30 years, right? Yeah. 3 decades of football. There really have been 4 special seasons in those 30 years. 1999, you get to the NFC Championship game, you lose. 2002, you win the Super Bowl. 2020, you win the Super Bowl. 2021, you have a Super Bowl caliber team that is capable of repeating. A couple of injuries late in the season to Chris Godwin, to Tristan Wirfs, Antonio Brown with the peace out. You have 1 or 2 of those players in there against the Rams, you probably win that game. You probably win another Super Bowl. So out of my 30 years, 4 special seasons. These types of seasons don't come around a lot.
So you're saying he's got to do it?
I'm saying he really should.
Like you.
Now, the one thing I'll preface this by saying is we don't know ultimately who's going to be available. We don't know what the compensation level is going to be. But what I do know is the Eagles, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Panthers, those are teams that are going to be looking for edge rushers. So you can't afford to stand pat and let your competition in the NFC grab some of these guys that could at least provide better depth than what the Buccaneers have. Because I tell you, if Hassan Reddick is out for multiple games or maybe for the rest of the season, we'll see what happens with the MRI. You're skating on thin ice. If something happens to Yaya Diaby, this team will not go far in the playoffs with Chris Braswell and Marquise Watts as the starting edge rushers. The season, in my opinion, will just about all be over.
Yeah, and we'll see once those MRIs. The MRI comes out, but I'll shout out. I'll be on the other side of it. Tyke Smith, I thought he had a good game.
He did.
He's a positive, right? He had a sack. Yeah. And when I looked at the stat sheet, and tell me what you think too, like the only thing that really jumps out when you look at it side by side is the rushing yards. Like everything else was like pretty much comparable. Like the Lions just outrushed the Bucs like a.
They did. They did. I will say this. I think the Lions came out with a physicality that the Bucs just didn't match.
That's true. See, I feel like the Bucs didn't play well and the Lions played good. And when you can't have both of those things happen.
Yeah. Well, and I think the important thing too is when you look at what the stat sheet doesn't say, there were 15 missed tackles by the Buccaneers defense per Pro Football Focus, right? 4 of which were by Servassier Dennis, who again, you look at the stat sheet, you're like, okay, 12 tackles and a sack, he was productive, but he missed on 4 tackles and gave up a lot of yards.
Yeah.
Zion McCollum had a couple missed tackles. Logan Hall had a couple missed tackles. So did Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah.
They just didn't do enough. Thought the defense played okay.
Yeah.
Got a couple takeaways, got a couple sacks, but overall it wasn't enough. And Aileen, to your point, they allowed too many yards on the ground and certainly did not, even come close to matching that with Rashad White and Sean Tucker on Tampa Bay side of things.
And the Lions secondary, before I move on, I mean, they
hat tip.
Played
They
out
showed
of
up.
their minds. I mean, just impressive, really. You got to give them a little bit of credit for sure.
Garrett, can you imagine if Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph and DJ Reed and Avante Maddox and Terrion Arnold had played? I mean, the Buccaneers might have any points, much less any yards. I mean, that group of reserves just locked down this passing game, and Baker Mayfield was not on whatsoever. He was off the whole night.
Which, and I think that if we're talking about, listen, all due respect and all due credit to the Lions, the defense, and the way that they played, but there were multiple times where I'm looking at this, film, and I'm not even watching game film. I'm looking at the actual broadcast, and normally it's hard to tell. Like, our guy's open. What is?
But
the
there were some open
seeing?
receivers. There's no doubt.
There was a lot. There was a lot he missed. He missed at least 2 touchdown throws. One to Emeka Ibuka that I distinctly remember, and one to Tez. And it just felt like the, kind of the game where we had this a little bit last year, I think, with Baker Mayfield, where there would be games where Baker would win the game, and it happened this year as well, just by being Baker Mayfield, by being that kind of guy. And then there were games last year, I think about like the Denver game, right, in week 3, where the team probably loses because of Baker. That really kind of felt like what this was to me. It was that
he was skittish in the pocket.
His feet
throws were high all night.
Yeah, his feet were jittery and
off. Yeah.
And to be fair to Baker as well, I mean, if you're talking about, the stats, 30 pressures on Baker Mayfield last night, and it's partially because he threw the ball 55 times.
50.
But that's the most pressures that any team has had in an NFL game this season. So it's not all on Baker, but it's certainly he wasn't helping himself.
Yeah, double whammy, triple whammy.
It was.
It was a bit rough. And
quadruple whammy.
We talk about the run game as well, and with the Detroit stats obviously being what they were, I thought that they actually played the run a little bit better. If you took away the one, and it's of course you're going to say if you take away the long touchdown, but if you take away the long touchdown, I think that was still a good running effort, but not such an overwhelmingly dominant one that the stats might suggest. So there's positives for the Bucs to take away from this, and really the first thing it is that's probably an anomaly of a Baker Mayfield game. If he gets back to doing what he was doing those first 6 games of the season, they're going to win a lot more than they lose down the stretch.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And one other point I want to make too is this game showed that the Buccaneers just aren't ready to handle the role of the hunted. And I talked about this during the week leading up to the game. The Buccaneers seem to relish the underdog role. They don't seem to like the role of the favorite.
So true.
They would rather be the hunter than the hunted. And when you are the hunted, it's an enviable position because you're the king of your conference, right? And with all due respect to Philadelphia, I still think Detroit is the best team right now in the NFC, and they proved it last night. The Lions came out really ticked off about that loss to Kansas City, and they were faster, they were more physical, they tackled better, they blocked better, they did all the fundamentals better in terms of football, and they had been in that type of moment before. And I think that they felt threatened, like, okay, here come the Buccaneers, and they want to take our crown, and they want to take it in our building. And we're not ready to give up the NFC South or the NFC supremacy yet. And that was the statement that they made was, nope, not yet, Buccaneers. This is not your time. It's still our time. And if you want to, and sounds like Ric Flair, but if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And the Buccaneers weren't ready right there and then to do that. It doesn't mean they can't later in the season. They have to learn from this. They have to match the intensity, the focus, the execution of these upper echelon opponents. I liken this to losing to the Eagles in 2023 in Monday Night Football in Tampa, getting crushed by the Eagles, run over, but then walloping them in the playoffs in the wild card game, or even going back further with the Eagles analogy in 2002, you lose in Philadelphia, and then you come back there in the NFC Championship game ready to play, and you've learned your lesson, and you're ready to show the maturity that you're ready to take that mantle in the NFC.
Or the Saints game in 2020 when they, of course, ended Drew Brees' career essentially in the playoffs.
That's right. Great point.
Obviously, Detroit had a lot to say about the outcome of that game, but there was another, I don't want to call them a team, there's another group on the field last night that had a lot to say about the outcome of that game. And look, I'm not normally one to complain about officiating, but I'm probably going to do that when we come back right after this. Welcome back into the Stream Center here in this episode of Bucs Bonus. Your Bucs 5-2 after the loss in Detroit, which, look, if you would have told me that they were 5-2 at this point in the season before the season started, Scott or Aileen, I would have said, I'm pretty happy about that result. What I'm not happy about, right, is Detroit getting a double review. Can we talk a little bit about the officiating here? Because
you and a lot of other people.
I just, it baffles me, some of the calls, and Baker said it himself, I think either was after the game or before, or this morning. I can't remember when he said it, but, he got pretty heated at the end of that game towards the officials and said, basically, if I feel like it wasn't called fair, right, then I'm going to say something about it. And I think that he is echoing a statement or a feeling that a lot of Bucs fans had watching some questionable choices by the refs in the game last night.
Yeah, it was disappointing for sure, and it seemed like the calls were pretty lopsided. And not just the calls, but the no calls, right? Baker Mayfield was sacked on a play, but he was really tripped, and that's a 15-yard personal foul penalty. It's when you trip an opponent, that should be called. And it was clear and obvious as day. It happened in the backfield. It should have been called. It wasn't. So that was a bit of a head scratcher. When you look at the play where Mike Evans broke his collarbone, he literally has a Lions defender draped around his back like a cape before the ball even touches his hand. So I thought there was a lot of missed calls. And to me, it was more the no calls than some of the calls that were made that I thought were pretty egregious in the favor of Detroit. Maybe that was some home cooking. Maybe that was the league trying to even things out from the beating that they took in Kansas City, and then they ultimately had to suspend Brian Branch for his part of the altercation. I don't know. I think there's too much New York involved in a lot of these calls and decisions with the officiating crews. And what I would like to see is just some consistency from crew to crew. And I mean, this is the biggest sport in America. Why can't we have full-time officiating crews? And you might sit there and say, well, what happens during the week then if this guy's not selling insurance or this guy's not running a business and moonlighting as a ref on the weekend? I don't know. Maybe they get together and they actually watch film and get on the same page. So there isn't these discrepancies, Aileen, from crew to crew where this team or this crew is going to let the guys play and not call anything, and then the next crew will come in, and we've seen that earlier this year against the Jets, and they call every other play as a penalty.
It's a great point you bring up, too, with them being part-time. Like, that's insane.
This is the NFL. Come on. What are we doing here?
And, you could disagree with me or not, but, I mean, the NFL is the most popular sport in the world or league in the world, Like, and you have refs who, dictate and decide what happens, really big moments that
on the weekends. It's
bizarre, but hey, maybe us bringing this up will be the spark, the change. But Garrett, I know you're holding some stuff in over there, babe. You just let it rip.
I'm just trying to
let
think,
it rip.
And this is not a recent phenomenon. It feels like it's gotten progressively worse as an NFL fan. I remember watching, who was it? I think it was a Dallas game. Maybe it was Dez Bryant back in the day. There was a pretty egregious touchdown catch, no catch, the one that kind of started that whole discussion. Yeah. This is, as you guys mentioned, the game is the biggest in at least this country, if not one of the biggest in the world. The revenue that these teams bring in, they have to be able to afford full-time refs.
Right.
And it's not just about the Bucs game. Obviously, as a Bucs fan, as somebody who is, keeping up with the team, Didn't love watching what the refs were doing last night. But as a football fan, I don't love Detroit getting all of the calls, or rather not getting any of the calls against KC last week. I don't love any time a team or a referee crew feels as if they need to take over this game and makes it unfun to watch, right?
It does.
And sometimes, like, you love the idea of, like, hey, let them play, don't call flags all the time. I get that. And then there's, as Scott mentioned, sometimes there are times where clear and obvious stuff that they should be calling. The tripping on Baker, especially was egregious to me. And the other one, I know that, on the broadcast, the referee analysis, whoever it was that on the broadcast said that this was a correct call, but like Jamel Dean getting run through basically by the wide receiver and getting called for pass interference when all he did was get trucked. I mean, it's crazy. I can't imagine that just being something that should be a penalty. If it is a penalty, they should look at that for the offseason. It was frustrating, and it's frustrating as a Bucs fan, but it's frustrating as a football fan because it dilutes the quality of the product.
Yeah, and I still really truly don't know what a catch is.
You and pretty much 32 other teams in the NFL.
And then it's like someone who loves defense. I mean, some of these roughing the passer penalties, and thankfully the Buccaneers really haven't had one of these that have gone against them this year, but some of these roughing the passer penalties are just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's like, I grew up in an era where, the harder the hits, the better. And, it's a different product. It's become so soft and almost unwatchable. Yet we do watch it, and so there's no escaping it. It's still the best.
And I get it,
but
safety.
It's not as good as it was, and it's not as good as it can be, and that's the disappointing thing.
Yeah, and player safety, is obviously important, and I'm not saying that we should throw all of these rules out. But you're right. I mean, like Tom Brady would tell you the same thing. You talk about how hard it is to defend the pass in today's NFL. A guy like John Lynch would probably not be able to play.
No.
Right.
Absolutely not.
And Tom Brady said it himself. That's not the problem of the defender in that scenario. That's because the quarterbacks oftentimes are laying the receivers out to dry. So it's just a combination of things, and really, I don't know how you fix it, but the first step should absolutely get the refs in here full time. Let them have a full time job, and let's see if we can get this product to improve. And as much as I don't want to keep talking about the officiating because it's a lot to talk about. We could go on and on and on. So instead, when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about the Saints game. We're going to talk about the fact that they got a bye right after that. And we're going to tell you guys why everybody should just kind of take a deep breath, including myself. Take a deep breath and calm down. Yes, Aileen, I was talking primarily to me about calming down because as we've documented over multiple episodes of Bucs Bonus, the Bucs work me up a little bit. My heart rate monitors go off every time on my watch that I'm watching a Bucs game. This one was no different. And, fans who have been like I have, right, where you lived through the decade of darkness that Scott loves to talk about, and you maybe if you were like me, I kind of came in on the tail end of Dungy, beginning of Gruden era, which really set me up for failure for most of my Bucs career, my Bucs fandom career, because, that was a nice little bright spot. Followed by years, really 15-ish, if we're being honest, of tough football to watch. Then, of course, I feel like, Tom came in, Bruce Arians, we win a Super Bowl, have a
kind
couple
of a changing
of
the guard there, right? And really not just that, but a changing of the guard in the NFC. And now, it was the Saints that were running this division. Aileen, you covered the Saints for a lot of those championship years, and now there's been a complete role reversal. They're the cellar dwellers. They're what the Josh McCown, Mike Lennon, Josh Freeman, Jameis Winston Bucs used to be, the cellar dweller. And now it's the Bucs that are on top. And I think this is a perfect team to get the Bucs' attention. I don't think the Bucs are going to be taking the Saints lightly. They trailed at halftime of that game last year in New Orleans before pouring it on and dropping a 50-burger. But I will say this. The Saints are a little bit of a thorn in the Bucs' side. And I don't think that they're a dagger that's going to kill the Bucs. I think Tampa Bay wins this game, but at the same time, it's nice to know that this isn't just like a one-win team that they're playing. They're playing a division rival. These two teams don't like each other. Mm-hmm. And I will say Tampa Bay has actually played better in New Orleans.
Right, we talked about that last week, yeah.
Then the Saints had played there against the Buccaneers, but the Saints actually played better and closer to the Buccaneers at Ray J. So it's kind of interesting, but I think this is right team, right place, right time, right before the bye week. This is kind of a get well game. Should be for the Buccaneers.
I was going to say
it should be really ticked off and take care of business and go into this much needed bye week with a 6-2 record.
How they respond to the Lions game is going to be everything. I think if they play the Saints and this is a close game, that's not good. If they blow them out, that's great, because then they'll follow what you just said, Scott. They're pissed off, they're angry, they want to make a statement here that's not who we are. So I think the score will tell us a lot against the Saints. And I hurt for my people over there. I really do. 1-6, like, God bless them. I listen, you guys know who I cover now, but 1-6, my goodness. I saw this emoji or meme that was like, as a Saints fan, and it was this angry, like, person and then this other angry person, and they were like in a fight, but the person was still holding an umbrella over the other guy because it was raining. And I was like, that's the epitome of what the Saints are over there in the fans. They're like, listen, we hate you right now because you're losing, but we still love you, because that's just how passionate they are. But I think this isn't a game to take lightly. I think regardless of who you play in the NFL, it's hard to win. So I imagine they're going to go into New Orleans and play like they're playing the Super Bowl champs, because they just don't, they shouldn't take this team lightly.
Scott, I love how Aileen, listen, we know where you guys are picking. Obviously, I think it's pretty obvious. But I love how Aileen kind of hinted at it by saying, if they go in and play a close game and win, or if they blow them out, that she didn't give a third option. I love that.
Right.
So obviously, I think it's a sweep across the board. We're expecting Tampa Bay to come out of this 6-2 going into the bye week, a much needed bye week. Scott, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us what you guys got going on over there at Pewter Report.
Yeah, check us out on pewterreport.com. We broke the news, unfortunately, about Mike Evans' possibly season-ending injury. You can read all of my columns and our insights at pewterreport.com. Also, check us out on YouTube at Pewter Report TV. We have our podcast 4 days a week, our Pewter pregame and Pewter game day show on the game days, as well as my Pewter Pulse and Bucs Brightside columns. They're in the video format there on YouTube, so check those out.
One of the best to do it in the business, especially when it comes to covering the Bucs. Scott, as
best
always,
of the best.
Thank you for joining us. Aileen, thank you for joining us. And for Bucs Bonus, for Aileen, for Scott, I am Garrett Phillips, and we hope to be talking about a 6-2 Bucs team when we see you next time.